Hi, I'm Kevin Eikenberry, and I'm here to help you reach your potential as a leader and a human being. Welcome to Remarkable TV and the Remarkable Leadership Podcast. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, make sure you click the link below to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Today, we're talking about the boxes that we put people in. Are you ready? Let's get started. Boxes are awesome. They are ways for us to carry things and move things. They have sides, they have tops. Boxes are containers. People, however, are not boxes. This box is static. You can get only so much volume in it and only so much weight in it. That's why shippers like Amazon have boxes of all sizes based on what needs to be carried, what needs to be moved. People, though, can grow and expand and move and strengthen. People are not boxes. So how is it that we actually put people in boxes? Well, there are several ways, three big ways that I think of that we put people in boxes. First, stereotypes. Stereotypes are boxes, right? Whether it's gender or ethnical or political, we could go on and on. We stereotype people and say, oh, that's the box they're in because of the way they look or the way they talk or where they're from or whatever. It's a box. Second, we use labels. And we use labels to say what people are doing and then label the people as such, right? Well, they are doing that, so they are that, right? They're positive. They're cranky. They're cynical. They're whatever. But the thing is that behaviors aren't people. I might be late for a meeting. That doesn't make me always late. That behavior is not necessarily who I am. I'm not always late. And lastly, we put people in boxes by using models. Now, models are too simply to fully describe or define people. A model is handy, but it's not the same as the real world. So an example, one of our favorite models is the DISC model for human communication, our styles of communicating. But the world is far more complex than D, I, S, and C. As valuable as those are, that model, while helpful, doesn't mean that a person is D, I, S, or C, but that they have those tendencies or those traits. In fact, almost everybody will exhibit at least some of all of those other traits one time or another. But when we use the model to put them in a box, we make a mistake. You see, in general, we put people in boxes when we generalize. And generalizing is helpful at times, but is extremely dangerous, as I've just described. As humans, our brains are pattern recognizers. We're looking for ways to create patterns to say, oh, this is like that. This reminds me of that. That's how our brains work. And that's what leads us to boxes. There's nothing wrong with the fact that we look for patterns until we short circuit all that and just label a person as X, putting him in that box. That's where the problem lies. Okay, so we put people in boxes. How do we solve the problem? What are the solutions? Well, I've got three solutions for you today that will help you right away and in the long term. Number one, be aware of the tendency. It's a human tendency to overgeneralize. It's a human tendency to search for patterns and start labeling or boxing people in. Being aware of the tendency is the first step to not letting it be what we always do. It might be our automatic first place, but doesn't mean we have to end there in our minds. Second, notice the boxes others are using. I'm not suggesting that we judge other people, say, oh, there they are, boxing people in again. I'm not suggesting that. But what I am suggesting is when we notice it in the world, and it's everywhere, we become more aware of the tendency in ourselves. And when we see it in others and see that it's not very helpful or healthy, then it will help us step back, pump the brakes on it a little bit more. Notice the boxes others are using, not to judge, but as an observing tool so that we can avoid it ourselves. And lastly, know the difference. Know the differences between behaviors and decisions that people make and the people themselves. There's a difference between what someone does and who they are, between the behavior and the behavior. They're not the same. Whether we love the behavior or disapprove of the behavior, that's not who the person is. When we short circuit that and put them in a box, it doesn't help anybody. Let me close with today's tweet. Putting people in boxes doesn't help you or them. Besides, you don't want others putting you in a box, do you? Well, before we go today, I mentioned something earlier called the DISC assessment. If you are familiar with DISC or would like to learn more about how to understand tendencies, not boxes, in communication styles, you can learn more by going to the link that you see here. I hope you'll do that. And I hope you'll be back next week for another episode of Remarkable TV and the Remarkable Leadership Podcast.